So we started trying to build our family in 2009, and we were unsuccessful in getting pregnant for a number of years. So we consulted a few doctors and were diagnosed with unexplained infertility. It's just really the most extreme form of frustration because there's nothing you can do to fix it, but there's also nothing wrong. So it's like there's nothing to fix, but yet we couldn't get pregnant. So we did some really brief researching on the cost of adoption and just really quickly kind of ruled it out, thinking there's no way we could ever afford it. I know I'm called to be a mom. I know I'm called to be a wife, but I know I'm called to be a mom, and I can't make it happen. And it's just utter devastation.
No matter how dark the storms are in your life, no matter how challenging it can be, the things that really matter are, your family itself, and realizing that where there's a will, there's a way, and where it seems impossible, it's not impossible. And it was a long 5 years for us with no answers and no positive movement towards building our family. And it was, when we received that call, it was like, okay, we know that
here's some hope.
Yeah, we're not alone, and that God, regardless of the storm, the valleys, there's always hope. And
we received a phone call kind of out of the blue from someone who had received a large settlement from a car accident and felt that God was leading them to bless our family with a large sum of money. And so this was right around harvest offering of 2013. And we thought, well, whether this comes to fruition or not, let's take a big step and let's tithe off of this amount that they're offering us. Just a few weeks after that, God came through, and sure enough, there was a check in the mail, and we knew that it was God's go ahead to pursue adoption. And so we found an adoption agency, and in March of 2014 is when we were matched with Melania's birth mother, and then our daughter, our harvest, our first harvest, was born in May of 2014.
We were hopeless and had nothing to cling on to until we actually held her that day, and the feeling of that is undescribable, something that we'll never forget. It's a story that we could have never orchestrated, and it's something that's beyond our wildest imagination. And
He gave me this dream to show me what to stay focused on, because the blessing was coming and my child was coming. And so when I first laid eyes on Melania, she was 6 hours old. We had just landed in Arkansas. And when she was placed in my arms, when I looked at her, it wasn't like I was meeting her. It was like we were reunited, because I had already met her in a dream that God had given me. And so when I saw her, my thought was, here she is. This is the one that we had prayed for and that God had promised us was coming. Melania was dedicated on Harvest Sunday in 2014. So that was a really joyous day for us to kind of give her back to the Lord, to just commit to raising her in the way of the Lord and to know Jesus from a very young age. So when we left Arkansas with Melania, after she was born, I had this sense in my heart that we were going to be back. And then sure enough, in February of this past year, I received a phone call from our adoption attorney who we worked with when Melania was born. I saw her number come up. I just started crying because I knew exactly what she was going to say. I could have had the conversation to myself because I just knew what she was going to say. And sure enough, she was calling to let me know that Melania's birth mother was pregnant again, and her first action when she found out she was pregnant was to run to the attorney's office and ask her to call us to see if there's any way that we would consider raising the kids together, because Adrian is Melania's full biological brother.
We're in the same position where we had the opportunity of adopting again. We're facing a challenge financially of how do we make it work, even though this is what we know we're being called to do.
I was scrolling through Facebook and saw that the Today Show was having this contest that they were giving away $25,000 to someone who could use the money in a new season of their life. And I entered and submitted a very brief little blurb about our story and one photo. And 2 weeks later, I got a call from the Today Show producer that wanted to know more about our story. And Al Roker showed up at our door and told us we were the winners. And I still to this day have a hard time believing it. But yet that was God's miracle for our adoption for Adrian. That's how he provided. Because of how things worked out, the kid's birth mom started having some contractions a little early, and everyone thought she was going into labor, including the attorney, the doctors, us. So we flew out there and got the unexpected blessing of being able to actually be there when Adrian was born. To be able to be in the room when Adrian took his first breath and to be his mother from the very first moment of his life was just an indescribable feeling. I felt so much joy, and I was so proud that this is my son and I get to be here. And I just felt like all of the struggles we went through, I would have done it 10 times over to have the 2 kids that God has given us. We went through so much pain in losing children, in trying to have children, and just struggling and not knowing which way to turn, and feeling like everybody else having babies was always just rubbed in our face. We just went through so much pain, and to be on this side of God's provision, I would take that pain all over again. To know that God is so good and He has such a perfect plan that we can never work out on our own. The harvest offering has totally changed our family. We went from the 2 of us as a family to having Melania, who's now 2.5. You say hi. And Adrian, who's 2.5 months.
Say yay.
And, basically trusting in God through just tithing and giving above what we thought we could for the harvest offering. God has come through, and we knew that He would. We just didn't know how. And our whole family has basically been built through the harvest offering and from God's miraculous financial provisions for us.